What's up? It's Rob Dyrdek,
And I'm Chris Bernard.
and we are the men of the hour.
We just spent a little time talking to Justin here about mindset, getting mind right, and all things entrepreneurial.
Justin Crawford here, and I'm with two men I've looked up to for quite some time now, not only for their extraordinary career trajectories, but for also having done so much in such little time, because I believe they also appreciate the fact that we probably don't have much time left in life, and it's about utilizing the time that we have, and it's something I truly believe, which is what I'm so excited about. And right now, only Rob Dyrdek and Chris Bernard's on the podcast joining us. Both of them are the co-founders of Mindright, a superfood bar that is set to get your mind right. We're going to talk all about it, guys. And we're also just happy to have the both of them here. They have a lot of knowledge to drop, some experience as well. I know I'm all about asking live questions, but we're going to talk a lot of business here today too. To the both of you, thank you for saying yes to doing this with me. And I'm really stoked to spend the next hour with you.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Oh, I think a lot of the people tuning in right now are not only fascinated, but can madly respect what you guys have been building over the course of your careers. Is not just because people are interested in it, but because I think a lot of people are starting to pursue it, hopefully in light of being their own boss or quote unquote doing their own thing. And I found a stat right before this interview, boys, that as of May, at least, it wasn't a super recent stat, but 582 million entrepreneurs are in the world right now. So I just want to start this conversation by asking the both of you, from your own perspectives and in your personal worlds of having done entrepreneurship and building businesses, why do you think so many people are entrepreneurs today?
I mean, look,
I think
I'll say that it's, there's a lot of it's this dream building, right? Like you get to this idea of like, oh, I could create this could become a thing, and then this could become my dream evolved in my way of life, and I could impact the world in my unique way. And I just think it's the nature of just humans in general. It's sort of why people settled and spread out and settled the United States of America, and then built all this industry and constantly disrupt and evolve and progress and push things forward. There's just something exciting about it. And it's the most alluring but misleading dream that you could ever realize, because 90% of people only see what it could be, what I need to do to start, and what it could be at the very end, but don't realize that it's the actual depth that you've got to grow and evolve in the very beginning will be the determination of whether or not you actually ever succeed.
Yeah. Barney?
Yeah, it's the flexibility of just, taking control of your life, creating a path for yourself. I think that the world today, it's lending itself more to an entrepreneur than ever, right? We have more resources, we have more knowledge. Everything is at the type of a Google search. It's the availability and the access to the space. But I think Rob's right. It's that messy middle that a lot of entrepreneurs are missing right now.
Wait, more on the messy middle than Rob. I mean, I feel like at some point people start looking at it as like a golden ticket to maybe what they would want to run away from in corporate America, be it finance. I mean, corporate media is even pretty corporate nowadays. It almost seems like people are trying to get away from maybe any given experience, but as they start stepping into it, they only see the two of you and what you've built, for instance, right? Take the two of your experiences. And I feel like people are just like, oh, that's what it could be. But would you mind elaborating on that a little bit more?
Yeah, and look, I think it's the even someone who's an experienced builder, whose life's mastery is curating entrepreneurs' ideas and shaping them into profitable, sustainable, acquirable businesses. Like it is, you just don't understand how much that they call it the valley of death. And why most companies go out of business in the first 18 months is because even doesn't matter like how much you have sorted out in the early stage, right? When you're just thinking about the idea, it's exciting. man, then it's like, you go through the diligence phase, right? You're like, man, I really think I can make this work. Like I should do this. Then it's like, you're in the build phase. Okay, let's create it. Like now you're in the creation phase. Oh, this is amazing. Maybe you get the sample of the product, all this stuff. Now you launch it. And it's like, here we go. And then it's like, you are just into the deepest, darkest waters of like trying to figure out the consumer, understanding what parts of marketing are working, like where you're finding holes, like, okay, supply chain issues. You just end up basically your initial scope of what you need to understand is about this wide, when in reality it's a chasm that you've got to you can only get through by learning and evolving what you're creating. And I believe there's sort of a break point, a horizon there, where at one point you just either realize you cannot do it, you're not going to find the consumer, you're not going to find product market fit, and you give up, or now you have total clarity on what you actually need to do and who your customer is, what your pricing strategy is, what your product should be, what your point of view, your positioning. You grow into that. Then it expands, involves, you find product market fit from there. But that's this dark, murky, very difficult like part of the journey that I think people are shocked by when they launch a business, because launching a business is exciting. It is like when you become the business is where you realize how complex it is. Even for really experienced entrepreneurs like me and Bernie, we're both super experienced. And even you got it, once you launch the company, it's like, you're trying out all these different resources, trying out, okay, we're going direct to consumer. Let's go to Amazon simultaneously. Okay, what's the pricing strategy? Okay, let's do sample pack, influencer pro. There's all these things that you're constantly tweaking and pushing and pulling to begin to build a business that's so much more complex than I think people give credit for. And you can only really learn it by doing it,
And I said this a second ago too. You guys launched Mindright together, and I want to get to the mission of it a little later in the podcast, because it's really heavy in mindset, and I think people should hear your guys' perspective on that first, and then Mindright. But that alone, that being a business, and you said it, you become the business, it becomes your life. And that's the whole stake of what entrepreneurship is for a lot of people. But between the two of you and what your partnership has turned into since starting that business together, what do you think some of those key components are that led to you at least getting this far with it?
I think it was aligning on the strategy, aligning on the product, the mission, the concept, but more so the future outcome, seeing this thing as a whole, 4 years down the road as a platform of products that appeal to a mass audience. And I think those are the things that are really appealing to Rob as he looks for ventures to invest into and partner with. And I think it was that alignment.
Yeah. And think about it. It's like, I'm an experienced builder, right? So how I build is incredibly nuanced, right? Because I've been through I've learned so much and evolved over and over and over, because I built so many different types of businesses. And when I look for an entrepreneur, like what I'm looking for, founder market fit. He came from the industry. I'm looking for white space. He saw the opportunity. He said, hey, nootropics, adaptogens are kind of being delivered over here, primarily in the supplement space. Like, what if we connected it with really high quality foods and did a launch with a bar, and it could scale into all these different products? He didn't like show up to me with a deck. He showed up to me with like the bars, the bites, the creamers. He went and like completely built the entire line that I got to taste in the pitch. And that is a deeply evolved, experienced entrepreneur and product developer, and someone that understands, has resources, and has a depth of knowledge where a 25-year-old version of Bernie Bernard would have been like pitching the concept, then like, okay, we got to figure out a manufacturer and like get somebody to make a sample, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the difference and founder market fit and experience, right? Like, and we connected before he even pitched it. and really like talk through the type of businesses and what we're looking at, which led him to really discover the opportunity that I couldn't discover on my own. I'm not looking at the space that tightly. He was looking at the space. Then how do we, oh, this is it. Then we validate it through like data and immersions and looking at the market. Then, okay, let's go on a journey to shape this into a amazing brand, which turns into Mindright Good Mood Superfood, and like this whole idea of the happy brain blend, and like, let's turn it into a verb. Like you use our product and get mind right and take on the world, right? I think that's it's when you have two very experienced people and entrepreneurs that want to, thoughtfully and strategically build something at the foundational level that they know that they can go out and grow and evolve and learn and find the market and build a great business, right? Like that's the difference in sort of the experience and expertise of us as builders,
Yeah. Well, I'm 25 now, so now I know what not to do if I'm going to go launch a superfood bar. Wait, that you hit on so much. First of all, connectivity and relationships we're also going to hit on in just a few moments, folks. And it's because the two of them, like you'd said, you had a pre-existing relationship that just so happened to turn into a business relationship because Bernie came to you with a great idea and what had seemed to be the perfect fit for what you wanted to invest into. I also want to educate people for a second here because I feel like I'm naive. That's why I bring you out of the podcast. I told someone today, we were at Soho House in New York. They were like, oh, so like, why do you podcast? I was like, because I can learn from people and I don't have to read books anymore. But really, you just said something, Rob, and I think it's so dope. If you really think about it, most people think that when you go into partnership with someone for a business, I'm not an entrepreneur. I just like host a podcast, work at NBC, like it's a whole thing. But and which I have another question for you too in a second, Rob. But for both of you really quickly, when you go into partnership with someone, is it usually that someone, one of the two, for example, take the both of you, has the idea and like the marketplace intel and like the product itself that you can actually put into your food or rub on your body or whatever that might be, and then there's the investor who is then the other partner. Can you break that down for us?
Well, I think it's different as it relates to what I do, right? Like I'm a venture creation studio, right? So I only build primarily from the idea stage, always pre-revenue, right? Like I may help reshape or get involved in a business that's kind of pushed along a little bit, but I only build from the idea stage. So what I offer someone like Bernie is like an entire team and a process of shaping and building and validating and supporting, bringing the product, building it and bringing it alive, right? And I think that's it's sort of a hybrid, but I also put up the capital to develop the entire brand. Then we used our resources and to go out and hunt down the people to partner with us, right? Which then allowed us to get Joe Jonas and Travis Barker and Marcus Lemonis, these relationships that we have, but we would never be able to get them to invest and be partners with us unless we built an incredible product and brand that was backed by an amazing entrepreneur that essentially is creating belief in the marketplace and the investors of like, hey, like, I want to be a part of this. This thing's going to be huge, right? Because at the end of the day, people invest in entrepreneurs because they're expecting a return on their investment, right?
Sure.
It's not because they just are so passionate about that idea. And I think that for us and for me in particularly, it's about finding like, I call, a solopreneur, someone that's just a one-man show, which was just burning the evening, burning the midnight oil. And like, we're the perfect fit. And even our diligence, we met Bernie through another friend of ours. And we just said, hey, like if you ever have an idea that fits our criteria, bring it back. Like he had the other idea we weren't interested in. And then even when we, cause I'm just Rob Dyrdek, the TV guy, to old Bernie here, you know what I mean? Like, and so he had to like really learn about like how I think, how I process, how I am to work with. And like, we had to like build a connection over, we worked on the business for a month before we really, maybe 2 months before we ever signed like paper, because then we get to see how each other works, and ultimately like how it would be to work together before we take that step forward. It's an unusual process compared to the traditional a partnership where maybe a partner has capital. A lot of times, what will happen is there's the brand, product, and creative guy, and he's got to have the financial operation partner, right? Like you're trying to find someone that can balance out your weaknesses with strengths, right?
Sure.
And their strengths with weaknesses type of thing, and I think for us, we try to assess what an entrepreneur's strengths are, and then make sure we help them build into their weaknesses, and we make sure they stay covered, and somebody's brought in to support that. Or we, in an ideal world, like the Great Bernie here, you learn all aspects of the business as well, so that you're able to holistically manage the business.
Wait, so Great Bernie, I have a double hitter for you now. When you were going to when you were going to TV celebrity Rob Dyrdek and thinking to pitch Mindright after they rejected not rejected, but weren't going to pursue your first idea, what was going through your mind? And then ultimately, how did you want to really win him and the team over and get this business partnership going?
We had multiple visits, and the first visit was more of just, hey, I'd like to meet this guy. I was introduced to Rob and his team. I came in not knowing exactly what Rob's, sphere was like, and what his level of investment looked like. I was exiting another brand. I brought that brand with me to pitch to Rob as an investor, and most celebrities are investing to diversify their portfolio, and they're, just playing in things. But Rob is a through and through entrepreneur builder from the pure passion of it, And it took me a few times meeting Rob to understand exactly what he was, what he stood for, what he was looking to do. And once I understood that, then it was easy to come to him with this incredible idea that I had been thinking about for some time, that, infused these nootropics with superfoods to support my lifestyle. I looked at my lifestyle very similar to Rob's as an entrepreneur. We're mindset based, we're success based, we have a lot of drive. How do you support those things? And I knew he would love this concept, and here we are.
Bam.
And keep in mind, then it was called Feed Your Brain.
Yes, Feed Your Brain was the working concept.
So it wasn't like and that's really part of our process, is like, how do we take like the initial, and how do we turn it into look at like the brand concept and go further. And even though we liked the name, we weren't able to trademark it. And it set us on the journey to begin to go through the process of developing what was perfect, and we just, you just keep working, on them. Then, I love when the value proposition of the product can be tied to the name, but the name has value, like Mindright matters already culturally, and then like you can turn it into a verb, and like it just like, like locked in. And then when it locked, it's like, oh, we did it. You know what I mean? Type of experiences, which is, truly, what makes it so much fun, you know what I mean, in the brand building process.
I'll add one more thing to the partnership side. I think when you look for a partner and you need a partner, obviously finding strengths that complement your own are very important. I think, a strategic partner that has been through these types of builds, that brings that value. And for me with Rob, one of the greatest values he brought was the validation point. And, he pushed really hard, not only to vet and understand the market space, but once we were ready to get a little bit closer to launch, he really pushed for market research. And we went out and we surveyed, a couple hundred people regarding the brand and their interests. And it really helped shape and drive the direction of where we took the brand from there. And I mean, it was an incredible value add.
You guys make this episode worth producing, so thank you. We're going to go back to Mindright probably in about 15 to 20 minutes, everybody, but I want to talk about the two of you as self-made men in general. I think this is such an interesting story, and this whole podcast was just built on, speaking of building, but it was really just can we drive positive influence through the narratives of today's most influential men, aka the two of you. And I wonder, so as self-made men in general, right, men of the hour, see what I did there? Give us a run for our money here. I feel like everybody listening in are either fans of the two of you, fan of the product, come back to the show each week, or whatever it might be. First of all, thanks for clicking play. But as entrepreneurs in general, why do you feel like it was the best option for your life, your livelihood, maybe your family, maybe where you wanted to take your life in general? Rob, we'll start with you, but why do you feel like, in just overall, and obviously you had started your career in a very different way than Bernie did, but now that you guys are both entrepreneurs today, why do you feel like it was the best option for you?
I mean, look, I sit on a different plane, I think, than Bernie's decision, right? Because my core business, right? My core business is a business that creates businesses, right? So it's, I've built 16 businesses since I launched in 2016, it's what I absolutely love to do more than anything, right? So for me, it's based off of also pointing what my personal mastery is, right? So many people don't define what they want to master in life, right? And so for me, I wanted to create a business that we were the very best at curating at the idea stage, right? Because it's literally the absolute biggest unknown, hardest thing in all of venture capital investing. Everything there is the stage when it's just an idea, right? And so for me, it's my passion, and it's like sport for me, and I look at it like all stages of it, and ultimately my goal is to create incredible products that become successful businesses that give me a huge return on my capital and time invested. I will always judge myself off of the return on my time and money. And so for me, how do I get really good at doing that? You do it over and over. You create a process and a system that you can optimize, and then you're only as good as the people you can build with, right? Because I don't operate the business with Bernie. I'm help develop, create, and advise Bernie, and am essentially like a superpower partner to help amplify the work that's done. So it's certainly a different experience as an entrepreneur for me. And I'm just someone also that started, quit high school and started his first company at 17 years old, and founded 13 companies before I built a company that just builds companies in 2016, and then built 16, right? So it's a much different sort of experience for me. But Bern had to make that decision. Bern had to clear everything out, tell the kids and the wife, I got this idea. I gotta take on this dream. And I got this guy, Bob, up in Hollywood. He's gonna help me.
Bobby D. Yeah, I mean, for me, I was born into this. It's in my blood. As long as I can remember, it was always, you need money, you sell something or you do something and you get money. And it's always been in my DNA to build my own thing to support my lifestyle. And even as far back as I can remember, to my first job where I had a boss. I worked for a snowboard shop, and I made it my own. Like, being there, I looked at it as it was my own place. I treated it like my own. I marketed it like my own. I treated the employees like they were mine. And it was just that mindset in me that I've always had as an entrepreneur. And, I graduated college, and I took a job as a sales rep, but it was an opportunity to build my own business from there. And it's been in me. I think the passion for creating products and bringing ideas from just the seed in your brain to life, to market, to people, to seeing people enjoy it. It brings me pure joy. It's my place. And I think putting me into a corporate setting is like a square peg in a round hole. And this is what's comfortable to me. This is how I work. And for me, it's in me. So,
which goes to my next question. and this could be a yes or no, and then we'll go into something else.
Yeah.
Which, Rob, I want to ask you about this whole media and entrepreneurship intersection, because I think a lot of people find that pretty interesting. But yes or no, do you think that entrepreneurs are you're almost, I can't say the same about sexuality, that's just too controversial, and you guys know where that rabbit hole goes. But when people start talking about religion, sexuality, and just all these different parts of us as human beings, some people will argue that it's a decision, or you are born this way. So and similarly, I think entrepreneurship, you guys can speak on behalf of this without getting political at all, which is why I want to ask it. Do you think you are born into entrepreneurship, similar to what Bernie said, which is, this is just how I am and what excites me and makes me happy? Or is it something that most people probably discover later in life? What are your opinions on that? Yes and no, and then elaborate if you need to.
I don't think you are born an entrepreneur. I think opportunities in life present the ability to take baby steps and being an entrepreneur. It's not like everybody just decides, and then really smart, sophisticated people that know they want to build a company and they go get an MBA and then go work at something. And like you can map it that way, but I've found that for the most part, like you commit to sort of an industry through passion, and then this sort of opportunity presents itself to where, like, okay, I could make a company off this because I have this relationship, this resource, and this, I know the customer needs this. I can actually do this myself and make money. I would say that's where most people do it for the first time, right? Now and begin to find success, because I think there's, and sometimes it doesn't work, they go back to a job, then they try it again. Like, some people try it, it's too hard, like it's this, and some people try it and get lucky, right? Like they're in the right place, right time, they found the right partner, and boom, the thing. And then they try to go do their second company and third and fourth and fifth, and never do another company that works again, because they were in this conversion of right place, right time. But at the end of the day, you dabble in it and you learn how it works, you grow into it like anything else, right? Like it's ominous and confusing at first, and as you keep trying and you fail and you learn and you evolve and you get smarter and smarter at how to do it, I think you grow into it, as opposed to necessarily being born into being an entrepreneur. What do you think, Bern?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think back to, like, my early start and my upbringing, and I was kind of forced into being resilient and finding ways to make money. And it was how it presented itself to me. And I would agree with you. It's the situation and how it develops through the course of time.
Yeah. And look, for like, I grew up, I like to say I was raised by entrepreneur wolves, right? My father was a suit salesman, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom who didn't want me to curse and wanted me to take Taekwondo to keep me safe in the streets. And, I became a purple belt. But it was when I decided, I don't know where this came from, I decided to call the local skate shop and say, hey, if I get 10 people, they had a ramp there, if I get 10 people to skate there, will you let me skate for free? And they were like, what? Like, yeah, I get, why don't you just come down here, like, and let me skate for free? Now I'm skating in this ramp, and they're like, oh, you got a lot of potential. I'm like, what does that word mean, right? But what it did at 12 years old, it introduced me to a serial entrepreneur that owned the shop. And so now I'm at this shop watching this young man build companies and do these things. I just at that age was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do too. This is what you do. And then now I watched him build multiple companies and watched people around him build multiple companies. It wasn't even by the time, like, I had quit high school and was moving to California, despite being moving there as a professional skateboarder, I was like, I'm a business guy. Like at 17, I would track my finances, and the first thing I did when I got there was build Orion trucks, right? Like, and build my first company. So it's like, that is a twist of fate by a single phone call of just trying to be able to skate a ramp at 12 years old, that led to a relationship and an introduction into entrepreneurialism. Otherwise, I
Mm.
would have just gone the path most likely of, well, who knows, but, going through high school and going to college and finding some more traditional path if I wasn't exposed to that, because no family members, nobody around me was an entrepreneur.
Mm. Well, so I'm going to skip this next part because I think that, I mean, I was ready to ask you about media and entrepreneurship, Rob, but for the both of you now, really quickly, now that we're on the subject line of relationships and connectivity, this word lucrativity, is if that's even a word. I just keep hearing a lot of people in sales and partnerships at NBC always, and you got to find like a lucrative side hustle. And I'm like, well, now I'm podcasting, so I think that's kind of lucrative. I want to ask you where relationships, I think they're essential, and I'm only 25, so who the fuck cares what I think? I think they're so essential, but I've seen it in New York City. You guys are in California, you see it the same. The business of mm, business, really, and entrepreneurship and entertainment and media, everything's a relationship-based business to the extent that you make pure, honest, good relationships, no matter who they are, without thinking that there's going to be some form of ROI. And I wrote this down here now because I was thinking to myself, I was like, how would I even pose this question to the two of you, knowing that you have a black book of thousands of people? You probably forget how you met half of them because they either turned into friends, although they were clients, or you end up marrying one of them when you thought they were going to be a co-host of a show. You just never know where these relationships go, but it's so cool. So I wanted to talk about it because we're at the midway point of this podcast episode. So when it comes to relationships, Rob and Bernie, like, can you help us to better understand how you created relationships even when you were as young as 12, or if you were in your 20s, Bernie, like whenever those times were, how did you ultimately discover how important relationships were going to be for your careers, period? Whatever you want to say to that. Because and then the reason I ask it that way is because I feel like at some point it's better, it's better said when you guys are just thinking about how you've built them and how they kind of now turn into all these other things. But in general, like, when was the moment when you realized how important relationships were going to be for you guys as businessmen now?
I mean, for me, it was the day I met Rob. No, I think, you know, providing service for other people, building relationships, making yourself available, taking time for others that are learning around you. Maybe you have a little bit more experience than other people. I've always put myself out there and made myself available with no expectations, and it always comes back to you in a very positive way. And a really good example is I recently, for Mindright, we just hired an old friend of mine. He was a young kid when I first met him. He was 16 years old, and he was one of my first hires for my original agency business. And this kid, he begged me for a job, and he was this young snowboard kid. He's like, I just want to be around it. I want to learn from you. And we brought him in as an entrepreneur. And this kid went on to have an incredible career in the action sport industry. Was a VP at Skull Candy, went on to get a degree at Harvard Business, and has now come back to me as our head of growth revenue strategy. And I mean, it's just a really great example of how putting yourself out there, it always comes back around.
Mm.
And I think relationships are everything. I think, as we look at the business and how we're building this strategic partnership, and having access to relationships definitely puts you further ahead on the road to success.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I think it's you're still exchanging value at the end of the day, right? Like a relationship is not, if you don't grow, evolve, and create value to where like that relationship that you had or got, that ultimately can create some sort of opportunity for either of you, right? And to me, it's the idea of every single relationship ultimately matters, and exchanging, I so many times someone will connect me, I'll meet them, I'll connect them with someone, I like, hey, you guys would be a better fit, this doesn't fit with my focus or my world, right? And then many years later we would go and build something together, right? Have some sort of thing. It's like, I think even, like for me, I have all these great relationships, and Mindright's a really great example of, have a great relationship with Travis and Marcus Lenomis. And if we don't, like, I could have, pitch a relationship, an opportunity, and if the opportunity is not built right and it doesn't have the right value and it's a real opportunity, they're going to pass. So that relationship isn't going to have play any part in this, right? So you still have to create the value for that relationship. But look, I always try to drive in anything I do to building a relationship with the gatekeepers of wherever I'm at, right? And to me, from throughout my television career, I learned early on that, I have a one-on-one relationship with the person that makes the decision at the network, right? And I force that relationship if that particular executive is trying to put a barrier between me as talent, if you will. And in the early days, like cold calls to the head of network, like I need to speak to him. And then it's like, oh, he just called me. I got to call him back, right? I'm not like, normally I'd talk to his agent. And to me, when it comes to doing big deals and deals in general and really moving things along and controlling your destiny, you really want to have the ability to talk to people directly who are in control of your destiny or can play a part in it to make sure that there is a one-on-one line on how you both can create value for each other to achieve the end result that you want. And you can't do that. If I did it once and then I was like all arrogant and being like, this is what it is, I got the best show, like they would never take the call again and be like, he's too, but it's now like they know that like it's business, and like if they need to do anything, they'd rather do it with me because they know I'm trying to figure out a solution on everything to move things forward and get it done. And I just think, you grow into those, but they're so important, and all of them matter. It's like, I have relationship with people, like it's like I just want to constantly be consistent, prove my work ethic, how good of a person I am, and ultimately my work and development and growth will prove itself. And if we grow into each other years later, then it's like my track record since you first met me is why we've met again. Like that to me is when you're really maximizing growing into a relationship, especially a relationship that's a little over your status, if you will, early on. Proving yourself and growing into a higher relationship is something that I have done over and over throughout my life.
I love that. I'm going to ask an advice-driven question here in just a second, but because you brought up the fact that people start a little earlier sometimes, it could be intimidating. I called Bernie and I said, hey, like, I think I found you guys on social at one point. Oh my God, I'm kicking my ring light. And I found you guys on social. I was like, oh my God, Bernie. I was like, I love the product. Da, da, da. You guys are clearing out a white space. It's super dope. I mean, no one thinks I'm 25, but I'm 25 and I have a lot to learn, And the reason I bring this up is because even when I called Bernie that day, he treated me as if I was 40. It was insane. And I've noticed that.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's an incredible thing. It's because I tricked you. No, I'm kidding. The reason I bring it up because I would think the three of us can even agree on this, that it's all about the approach and the way. And Rob, you said this. It's like you want to make sure that there's not only value there, but you guys are kind of trying to build something together. And and a lot of times will come down to who who the two of you both know. And maybe there's some history with Bernie and a friend, like how we're on the Zoom call now is because I knew Bernie, for example, right? To be transparent. And I was like, oh my God, let's get Rob on the pod. And I was like, no, let's get the three of us on a podcast together. And it's because of relationships similar to Bernie and how you guys got Joe Jonas to talk about Mindright and be a part of that venture. It's similar. I was like, oh, Bernie, I was like, hey, I know some celebrities and I do this thing called Men of the Hour live workout. Would you guys, maybe Mindright can be a part of it to some capacity? But that's kind of what ticks in my head. And aside from me, I wonder a lot of young people probably aren't. And our demographic is, to be honest, is 1834 for the mass, to anybody listening right now. And if you have a little bit of reservation to approaching anybody that's a business person or a stakeholder, a senior leader at your company, even, okay, I want advice now from the both of you. when a young person is wanting to approach a senior or an entrepreneur or a stakeholder, or someone who is of high influence, Rob, I wouldn't call your, I would probably call your desk, but you know what I mean? It's different because now we're on a Zoom call. But I wonder, like, there's a lot of people who are in their 20s and 30s, sometimes 40s, 50s nowadays, who are just reserved and do not want to make the effort to approach someone of high influence or power, or again, a stakeholder of any kind. And I don't know why. I mean, again, like, I think it comes down to personality type. But if you can give advice to that person listening right now that wants to tap on one of your doors, or someone who has a lot of money for their potential business, or is an executive producer to show, and this person who's a little reporter in Iowa wants to be a network TV host, I mean, what's the advice there for people who want to tap on those doors?
I think for those people, energy creates energy. You rub your hands together, they're going to get hot. And if you want something, you have to go for it, right? And I think you're a great example. And that was a great story you just told. You reached out to me. Is this guy crazy, or is he the real deal? Like, what is the value that he brings? And I opened the door to you, and I said, okay, let's talk. And I realized you're the real deal. You ended up bringing value to me. You offered advice. You made introductions. I in turn wanted to sponsor some of the shows. And I think having that grit to go out there and be uncomfortable and be aggressive are the qualities that help people get ahead. You don't get ahead without putting yourself out there. And I think it's energy creates energy.
Yeah, and look,
that's the best advice you can get.
And it's value, right? At the end of the day, like you still were like, hey, I have this, it connects great with the product. Like, I'd love to be a part of the world. It would be, like that. It's already like the right approach with the right person, and you had the right value to support it, right? And I think when you go all the way down to that shy intern who's going to go knock on Rob's big dog CEO door, it's not a matter of like, hey, I want to be a CEO too one day. It is, hey, Rob, this is how you would knock on my door. Hey, Rob, I listened to the podcast where you collect qualitative data every single day about your life, work, and health, and how it really gave you insight to change like who you are as a person and ultimately elevate. I want you to know I've been doing it for the last like 2 months, and it's really changed my life. Do you have any books or anything that you could recommend me to read that kind of fit with your philosophy? What am I going to do? I'm going to say, well, look at you. Yeah. Start read Effortless, read Essentialism. These are great books. Read Principle. It's like, if you come in with some sort of either line to show, because what would that person show? I'm like, okay, this person is like looking at what I'm doing, thinking what it is. It's the approach and why and what you're looking for and what your ask is. I think it is like, is the range. Because what happens a lot of times is there's no strategy. There's just desire and want. And then that becomes like time wasting and, ultimately not worth engagement, right? Because it is like, okay, I can't, the approach isn't just because you were willing to go and ask or talk to someone doesn't mean it's going to be something that's going to be worth them engaging on to do, you know what I mean? And I think that's the other side of it. It's being thoughtful about how you ultimately approach any individual on that you're wanting to be a part of. And really, it's always got to be some sort of exchange that creates, some sort of something beyond an ask. You know what I mean?
Damn. And you said the word mindset. So I want to get to that really quickly. First of all, I mean, everything you guys just both said, I hope helps anybody who's listening right now. I mean, if you think about it, it's one of those things where so many of us probably talk ourselves out of situations, and I've seen it day in and day out. I was at a happy hour yesterday, for instance, with a lot of people at NBC who are younger, my age, AKA, right, first 5 years of their career. And I'm the one sitting there and listen, I would never, are you fucking kidding me? I'm trying never to have a big head. I'm Japanese. Like we would get executed if we had a big head. But I wonder sometimes, I'm like, yo, it's not a confidence thing sometimes. You know what I mean? It's a relationship building thing. Don't you want the senior or the person who's making decisions to better understand who you are, what you want, how you want to add value to the company, and then all that in turn gets you a higher title, position, pay, all that stuff will trickle effect afterwards. But I remember having that conversation last night, which is why I'm so glad I asked you guys, and those answers were absolutely fucking perfect. As much as I would love to end the podcast, I got to ask you about mindset. We're going to get back to Mindright really quickly. So the product itself, I know it has so many nutrients and ingredients in it that totally will activate the mind in a different way for a lot of people. And then back to the idea of white space, which essentially is just you guys are filling the space for people to allow their brain to activate in a way that kind of like sets the mood, the tone, and then the mindset. Rob, you just said the word mindset not too long ago. And I think that so many people think of that word and they're like, well, what does that mean? And I think there's two spectrums, or there's a one spectrum and two extremes. You have a negative, pessimistic, a drop down low mindset, and then you have a positive, you have an optimistic and uplifting, holy shit, I love my life mindset. The two of you I know are there right before we hit the record button, and because I know how the two of you are, that we're kind of on the other positive side of the spectrum of mindset. But because I know that's where you guys are, can we start there for a second? And where did you guys, how would you define having a positive mindset, and then how does that play a role into your like everyday life, personally and professionally?
Go ahead, Baron.
Okay. I think mindset, we could agree. Mindset is your path. It holds your path to your greater success. Right. And I think I've been in places where I have had a bad mindset, and it affected everything around me, my personal life, my business, challenges in my own health. And I think that once you realize the pillars that support mindset, you can start to really address each one individually. And for us, and this is becoming the ethos of the brand, as mindset is our superpower and we drive things forward, I think it's mood, right? You want to feel good. In order to get out there and take a walk, go for a run, exercise, take the next call, you got to feel good. How are you doing that? Energy. If I'm not energized, it's really hard to get through a 10-hour day and be the dad I want to be when I get home at the end of the day. And then the last one is focus. I want to nail it. I every time I show up, I want to bring it. I want the quality of my presence to be felt, and I need focus to be able to bring that. So for us, it's how do you support mindset? And it's mood, energy, and focus. And, that becomes the pillar of Mindright. And it's where you get those things. It's diet and nutrition. And that's what Mindright is all about. It's exercise, it's meditation, it's sleep. How do we build a brand that not only supports the nutrition and diet side, but also fundamentally is immersed in supporting all of the other pillars of supporting your mood, energy, and focus?
Yeah, and look, for me, I think mindset is a very broad concept as it relates to the first step in being aware of how to better yourself, right? Then I think fundamentally you've got to look at yourself holistically, right? That is your mind, body, and soul, in who you are. It is your passions and work in what you do. And it's your relationships, your adventure, your hobbies. It is your lifestyle. It's the way you live, right? And you need to not only integrate those in a seamless way, but then now you've got to grow. You are built to grow, and to live in the happy side is to be able to control your lower self and be making progression towards clear goals and evolving into the ideal version of yourself. And because when you feel that growth happening, your hope, self-belief, and all these things like continue to build in you, your confidence, all these sort of things. And as long as you're moving towards some sort of goal, some sort of position that is of your ideal self, you will be living in the energy that's driving you, making you patient, because you're progressing towards an outcome that will give you that fulfillment, confidence, self-belief. But if you're not growing, then you're complacent and questioning. And then if you're going backwards, regressing, now you're depressed and losing hope and like, I don't know what to do. So to me, people that settle into a growth mindset, how do I in my core know I'm going to continually evolve and become better and better over time? Then if they can point that in a clear direction and begin to build goals, now you're growing towards something, is where that sort of positivity and optimism and happiness comes from. You know what I mean?
I never thought of it like that. I used to tell people, I have in my little Instagram bio thing, the word optimist, aside from host, producer, podcaster or something. I was like, I'm going to throw optimist on there, because everybody that I've met, not just me, but I think a lot of people naturally, it's not a natural thing now that I think about it. Someone told me the other day, boys, they were like, you got to do some soul searching. I think you're just like, you're always happy, but I don't know if you're always actually happy. I was like, wait, I'm fucking happy. What do you mean? I was like, I'm healthy. I take care of myself. But you guys both said it. It's like there's such an equilibrium of like 10 plus things happening in your life at one time. It's not work and life. And Bernie, we were texting about this a little bit ago. It's like there is a work-life balance, but there's also like 700 things within both of those that you still have to kind of pursue at different times and put different levels of energy and time into on any given day. And I think the whole point of it's like, I want to ask you this, and then I know we're going to wrap in here in just a sec. Time is a valuable thing, so I'm not trying to keep you boys forever. But I wonder, how do you guys treat your days? Are you waking up and then looking at the calendar and saying, all right, what's a priority? I'm going to take it one day at a time, or do you take it weeks at a time, months at a time? How do you guys kind of level that part out? Because I think anybody listening now, the whole point of why I think people get frustrated and stressed and depressed and all that shit that nobody wants to be, is because people feel overwhelmed, especially today, with how much they feel like they have to do or what society's putting on them, and et cetera, et cetera. But how do you guys play out your days and stay quite level-headed so that you can kind of stay optimistic and happy?
Look, I am an extraordinary, extreme version of this, right? And I live a deeply, deeply balanced life. And what I realize about how balanced that I do live, I designed balance. And then what did I do? I got better and better and better and better and better and better at being balanced. You don't just wake up one day and like, oh, I'm going to be work-life balance. I'm going to be more balanced. I'm going to hang with my friends more. You design balance with purpose, right? I have an 80-page document called The Rhythm of Existence that is the operating model for my life. And it puts my entire life into this living cadence where everything balances the standard of organization. But I still allow myself, depending on how I'm feeling, to adjust that, and I record every single thing that I do every single day in a calendar and tag it. And it all goes into these beautiful dashboards. And I can show you by data that I spent, 30% of my life sleeping, 30% with my family and wife, and 30% working, and the rest on health, right? It is perfectly balanced and by design, right? And so now you look into the layers of that, it gets optimized for energy. Then I collect data every day. How do I feel about my life, work, and health, 0 to 10? So now I have qualitative like data, because that's a hard thing. You got to go with how you feel. Then I have my quantitative stuff that I track. Did I get up at 5? Did I brain train? Did I get in the gym? Did I meditate? Did I have a clean diet? Did I not drink? And you can see a complete correlation to someone who's mastered time, energy, and self on their qualitative numbers of how high they've grown when you've have this entire multi-dimensional life harmoniously balanced, and then you grew into mastering balance. That is, we're talking about living a life where you almost don't even have a negative thought. And you certainly do not have any level of stress that exists in you. You only have things that come in, they're easily identifiable, you handle them, you move forward, right? Like you live light as a feather, right? And this is like personal mastery when you choose to master life and the outcomes of life and be able to essentially learn to control your destiny by mastering how to relentlessly get good at deciding what you're going to do and building a plan backwards to get there and then doing it. That's what you want to do with your life and balance as a whole. The better and better you get at that, the less and less effort it takes, right? When you get really good at something, first, it's so hard to create. Then you build it, then you automate it, then you get to optimization, right? And now you're living in this optimized state where you're flowing and fully working. Now you're just getting better and better. It's the key to life for all men of all hours.
I love you, dude. What, Bernie, thoughts?
I don't even know how you follow that up, but I'll tell you what, I've heard Rob talk about this a million times and it never gets old. And it is the most aspirational thing to me, because you could take 3 or 4 little pieces of what he just said and compound your daily success tenfold. Getting up early, eating right, getting the right amount of sleep, balancing your personal life with your work and making sure that's a priority, and not drinking. Like, those for me are my core tenets that I need them, and exercise. And you take those things and you simplify Rob's incredible design and his life plan, and it just leads you to this path of success and clarity, and just it keeps you running and gunning.
And then you feel like you're living you feel like you're living your life as opposed to working for your life. And I think that's where a lot of people are. And if you're listening now and you have a corporate job, you have your own business, you're supporting your family's business, whatever that situation might be like, I think all of us are in certain scenarios, but you can't feel bad for yourself anymore, right? I mean, you're the whole point there is that you have all the autonomy and power to take care of yourself and do this for you. And that's such a beautiful thing, but it takes your ownership in that to activate, as the both of you alluded to. I got one more question, boys. Do not log off the Zoom call yet, please. I got to ask you, so take us back in time for just a moment. I'm a huge fan of reflection, not every day. Sometimes in the sauna on a Sunday, or when I do cryotherapy, I'm like, oh, let me reflect on like one thing I'm very grateful for. Gratitude is so fucking important to me, and why I built this podcast, and why you guys are probably episode number 64, which means we're 64 weeks back to back, swear, every fucking Monday at 12 noon. And the reason I want to ask you guys this is because I feel like you just have this ingrained in your brain and have been maybe waiting to tell somebody. Can you give us your favorite moment, whatever that moment is, however long you need to describe it? I know we've hit the hour mark, and I'm really sorry for going a minute over, but please tell us your favorite moment in your career where you knew you were doing exactly what you wanted and needed to do for yourself and those around you. But if there's one moment, can you guys share that with us?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and not.
Did he pause?
Gone.
Hold on, go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead. You just start talking. I'll cut it out.
Not to be cheesy, but it was a Rob moment. It wasn't the day that I met him, but it was actually the day we got to the point where I was ready to present the idea. And I had never been more confident about anything in my entire life. I'd never been more prepared. I never felt better about an opportunity. And, just reflecting, I always think back to it. And I went to see him and pitch him. It was on my birthday, and I'm like, I could care less. This is it. And it brought me so much joy, clarity, and here we are.
Yeah, look, I think for me it was, I went through a a big sort of discovery and life design and big moment in 2013, right? Where I just realized, like, man, you're doing all of this, but you're not happy, right? And then I set on the journey of like, man, you can't keep like just trying to do all these different things and hope that life will reveal itself to you. You've got to decide what life that you really want. And um, the next, year and a half, I began this process of designing my ideal life, and I began to see the world as these systems, and I began to look at business from the same lens. All of these things, I began, I started taking personality tests and different tests that give you insights to who you are. I began to like dig deep into like, who are you? What do you want to become? And ultimately, what are you most passionate about? And I think that discovery and designing and building the life that I wanted to grow into was this extraordinary moment. But when I finally like basically broke through and became the life, which would have been 2016.
Mm.
Like, if I started designing in 13, it took me about 3 years before I became. And it happened in this entire pace from like, where I moved and got a new office and launched the machine, and all these things happened in this incredible time period. And like I had finally broken through to where I was really living the life that I had planned and envisioned for myself. And it was just this like incredible feeling of like deep self-belief. And it goes beyond gratitude. You don't practice gratitude. When you get to a certain level, you're overwhelmed with it. You just can't. Even to this day now, this is 5 years later, I am 80% of the way to the plans that I had built for the rest of my life. And now I can see all the way to 65 and everything that I'm going to do, and the clarity of what that is, the energy and the growth and the belief again. And what am I? Oh, today, overwhelmed with gratitude. I've been in my shower and be like, yes, like, you're so lucky that you get this shower. Like it is, you just look at, like, I have a 2-minute conversation with my son who's singing a song, like, like, and I'm like how amazing that he sings like just out of nowhere, right? Like you just get overwhelmed with gratitude when you realize a vision for who you can become. And I think for me, again, back in 2016, when after the 3 years of like fighting to bring it alive, like when it came alive, it was just this extraordinary enlightening and amazing experience that I have never looked back from.
We're
I
gonna
thought
end
he
the
was, I thought he was going to say the day that he met me and keep it simple.
I really thought that too.
Can I change mine? Can I change mine?
Can I change mine back when the
Y'all, oh my gosh. We're going to slowly roll out of this episode, everybody. If you clicked play and you stayed with us for the entire hour, thank you. I hope you're inspired. For anybody listening, I have to thank the both of you from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, I admire what you guys have built with Mindright, but I also admire who I've met out of Bernie and now who I've gotten to know out of you, Rob. This is so therapeutic for me, but for anybody listening, I know it's inspiring. That's the goal with these long these long form conversations on podcasts. I used to go to red carpets and get like 2 minutes out of you guys on fucking, galas and stupid movie premieres. I'd be like, oh my God, what are you wearing today? But nowadays it's like, oh my God, we just got a whole hour of the both of you. And this, again, therapeutic, inspiring, and I know that a lot of people will learn from everything that you guys had to say about business and life and what you guys have found within yourselves. And I hope all of us who are listening can find within ourselves. So to each of you, Rob and Chris, thank you so much for saying yes to doing this with me for the past hour and some change.
Great to be here. Always enjoy hanging out with my boy Bernie.
Yeah.
Just 2 men of the hour. Just 2 men of
Yeah.
the hour trying to get mine right.
Bert and Bernie.